Welcome to Reddit War Room Podcast, and welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take source material, could be articles, research, maybe personal stories like today, and we really dig in.
Yeah, the idea is to pull out the key knowledge, the insights, basically distill it down for you.
Get you the core information, those interesting bits, the aha moments, without you having to wade through everything yourself.
Exactly. We do the weighting, you get the insights.
Okay, so today's source is, it's just one piece, but it's powerful. It's a personal story someone shared over on Reddit in the Our Military Stories community.
Right. It's an account of this really pivotal moment someone had literally on the drive to boot camp, a point where things could have gone completely differently.
And our mission here, our goal for this deep dive, is to really unpack that moment. We want to look at what happened, this unexpected event, the surprising choice the person made, and really try to understand the why.
The motivations behind it. Because it wasn't the obvious choice. It's a great look at how, external events can slam into our internal doubts.
Sometimes with really unexpected results.
Exactly.
Okay, let's get into the story.
So, the scene. The author has just left MEPS Military Entrance Processing Station. That's the final stop before shipping out.
Final checks, paperwork, all that.
Right. And they're in a taxi with a couple of other recruits, heading to the airport, destination, boot camp.
And the author sets this mood contrast right away.
Yeah.
Says the other recruits seemed excited, ready to go.
But our author, it's totally different headspace. They were having major second thoughts.
Thinking things like, fuck, should I do this? Can I still get out of this?
Yeah.
That kind of internal debate.
Yeah, real serious doubt, even at that late stage.
And the setting wasn't helping. The author remembers it being cold, windy, raining.
Not exactly an inspiring send-off.
No. And then, bam, the unexpected happens. The taxi takes what the author calls a weird, sharp turn.
And the driver's reaction tells you everything. Oh, no, 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 no.
Oh, man. Yeah, they slide right off the highway, down a grassy slope. Suddenly, it's chaos. The car stops abruptly. It wasn't like a huge crash, but the physical impact was real. The author mentions getting whiplash, neck, and back pain.
A sudden jolt. Physically and mentally, I imagine.
Absolutely. And this whole detour, it sends them right back to where they just left MEPS.
You can just picture the scene back there. The author says the military staff were shitting bricks.
Yeah, I bet. They're responsible for these recruits. An accident is the last thing they want.
Right. So naturally, they rush them off to emergency services to get checked out immediately.
And the checkup confirms it. Bruised neck, bruised back, a big headache. So definite documented injuries.
Okay, so now we hit this crucial point. This external event, the accident, smashes right into the author's internal conflict, those second thoughts they were already having.
And they start thinking about their parents. They mentioned their parents never wanted them to join anyway.
Okay. So calling home about an accident.
Exactly. The author realizes calling home now basically means telling them I'm coming home. It's the perfect reason, completely legitimate, to back out.
The universe just handed them an exit ramp.
And not just metaphorically. The military staff actually spell it out. The author says, the option to postpone and possibly not join was put in front of me.
Wow. Clear as day. You're hurt. There's an accident. You can delay, maybe not go at all. Here's your chance.
So the perfect out. Physical injury, official permission, parental disapproval as backup. It's all there.
This is where it gets really interesting psychologically, though, because your first thought might be, okay, doubts plus accident equals get me out of here.
Right. He was already questioning it.
But nope, that's not what happened. The author actually reflects on why they were having second thoughts before the crash.
And it wasn't just boot camp sounds hard.
Not primarily, no. They state it clearly. It was the fear of failure and wasting all that time for nothing.
The fear of going through it all and then not making it. The personal failure aspect.
Exactly that. The shame, the feeling of letting people down, of having wasted the effort. That was the core fear.
Okay. So how does the accident play into that fear?
Well, initially, the authors saw the accident, just like we assumed the perfect out. They even called themselves a man of opportunity thinking about it.
But then something shifted.
Massively. This is the absolute key takeaway. The accident, instead of making them want to leave, actually took away that core fear of failure.
Wait, hang on. How? How does a car crash remove fear of failure? That seems backwards.
Because in the author's mind, the accident became a built-in excuse. If things got tough later, if they struggled in boot camp, if they even washed out,
They could blame the accident.
precisely, they could pin it on the physical effects of the crash. It wasn't just them failing. It was this external event, these injuries holding them back.
Wow. So the accident became like a safety net for their ego. It externalized the potential failure.
You got it. The crushing weight of personal failure was suddenly lessened. There was this external factor, this legitimate reason they could point to if things went south.
That is a wild psychological twist. The event giving them the perfect reason to quit actually disarmed the main reason they wanted to quit in the first place.
Completely reframed the whole thing. And so, presented with this perfect consequence-free exit, they chose not to take it.
And the immediate proof of that choice, they decided not to tell their parents about the accident at all.
Right. Just called their brother, said the flight was delayed a day. That's it.
Keeping this huge secret to stay on the path they'd now paradoxically recommitted to, that takes resolve.
It really does, emerging right out of that chaos.
Okay, so they decide to push forward. But they also admit they still hated boot camp in Prospect for other reasons. So if the fear of failure was lessened, but they still weren't thrilled, what kept them going? Why bypass that easy out?
They lay out a few key things. One was wanting to make their parents proud. Even if the parents were initially against it, succeeding could change that, right?
Yeah, that desire for parental approval, or maybe just respect, is a strong motivator.
Definitely. Another big one was money, finally being able to help them out with money.
Ah, okay. So a sense of responsibility, a practical goal beyond just personal achievement.
Adds a layer of purpose, for sure. And interestingly, they mention looking at the other recruits.
The ones who are also struggling?
Yeah. Seeing how many other people like me were also struggling but still trying, it created this feeling of not wanting to leave them behind.
That shared struggle, realizing you're not the only one feeling overwhelmed, can build a weird kind of bond, even that early.
Totally. Like, we're in this together. It normalizes the fear and the difficulty.
The author also talks about a coping mechanism they developed later in actual boot camp to handle the intensity.
Oh, yeah. This is classic. They focused on just looking forward to the next chow, the next meal.
Breaking the whole overwhelming experience down into manageable chunks.
Exactly. Operating in 4 or 5 hour intervals. Don't think about the weeks or months ahead. Just make it to lunch. Make it to dinner.
It's a smart psychological trick. Makes the mountain seem less like a mountain, more like a series of small hills.
For sure. And then there was this other mental strategy, something they called a crazy mentality. At the end of a really rough day, maybe they got torched on the quarterdeck. Intense discipline.
Right, a brutal day.
Lying in their bunk, their rack, they'd replay the day. But they'd focus on how much worse it could have been.
Instead of dwelling on how bad it was, thinking about how it could have been worse.
Yeah. And somehow that made them feel like they'd got away with the day. They actually felt better.
That's powerful reframing. Finding relief not because things were good, but because they weren't even worse. Like survival itself becomes a victory.
It's actively building resilience through perspective shifting. Really quite sophisticated mentally.
So this whole incident, the accident, the secret decision, who actually knows about it now? Did they ever tell people?
They say only some of my family and very few of my Marines buddies. Still largely under wraps.
And the reason for the secrecy?
They weren't sure how people would react to my decision-making.
Which kind of underlines how personal and maybe counterintuitive that choice felt, right?
Yeah.
From the outside, leaving might have seemed the logical move.
Exactly. Their reason for staying was so tied to that internal shift around the fear of failure.
And maybe the most surprising part of the reflection is the author saying they're kind of glad it happened.
Glad about a car accident. How?
Because they believe 100% I probably would have had a way different mentality at boot camp if it hadn't happened.
Meaning, without the accident removing that specific fear, they might have been too anxious, too focused on potential failure to actually succeed.
That seems to be the implication. The accident, the thing that should have stopped them, ironically cleared the biggest mental hurdle.
Wow, the obstacle became the path.
Yeah. Now the source, the Reddit post, also had comments, and some of those add really useful context.
Right, especially on the practical side of things after an incident like this in the military.
A big theme was documentation. Get everything in writing.
Oh yeah, multiple people stress that. Get the medical records for everything, go to sick call and document everything.
And keep those records safe. Make copies, send them home.
Why is that so crucial?
It's all about potential future VA claims. Injuries, even ones that happen right before training officially starts, can have long-term effects.
Ah, so for healthcare, disability benefits down the road.
Exactly. Without that initial documentation from the time of the incident, Proving a service connection later could be incredibly difficult, if not impossible.
It's the bureaucratic reality behind the personal story. Someone even asked specifically if the author had documented the accident. Shows how important vets know it is.
Definitely. It highlights that duality, the personal journey, and the system you have to navigate.
There was also another little story in the comments, a different pre-boot camp experience.
Yeah, this was an officer candidate heading to the Air Force, not an enlisted Marine recruit.
And they had different expectations, maybe about treatment, thought they'd get their own hotel room the night before MEPS.
Didn't happen. Ended up sharing with an enlisted guy.
Even their recruiter was apparently surprised.
And the commenter made this interesting observation about the us versus them, the officer-enlisted divide, starting super early, like before day one of actual training.
Yeah, just a small insight into how those military cultural distinctions start forming right away.
Okay, so let's try and connect these dots. We've got the main story, this incredible psychological flip, the coping strategies, the secret, the practical advice on paperwork. What's the big takeaway for you listening to this?
Well, I think fundamentally it shows how challenges aren't always straightforward. What looked like a clear stop sign, the accident, actually became the thing that cleared the way internally by removing that fear of failure.
It really complicates the idea of opportunity and choice, doesn't it? Life throws you an out, maybe even a good reason to quit.
But the decision to keep going can come from this really complex mix. Yeah, maybe some internal grit, but also things like family responsibility or feeling connected to peers who are also struggling.
And it definitely highlights those coping mechanisms. Breaking huge challenges down,
Yeah.
focusing on the next meal, the next small step. That's incredibly practical advice.
Super practical. And that perspective shift, too, actively thinking it could have been worse to build resilience, that's a mental muscle you can actually train.
So we followed this story from a literal physical accident to this really deep personal decision, this shift in mindset.
Yeah, it's amazing how an event that seemed like the perfect excuse to quit actually enabled the author to face down their biggest internal barrier, that fear of failure, and push through, even if they had to keep it a secret.
It leaves you wondering, doesn't it?
Mm.
How often do the obstacles we face, the things that make us want to turn back or look for an escape?
Yeah. How often do those very things actually contain the key, maybe the catalyst we need to overcome something deeper inside ourselves?
Something to chew on next time you hit one of those unexpected detours in life.